Hello everyone, sorry for being so late, but we do have our end-to-end hockey live draft video. I'm going to be doing a live draft stream here, talking about all the interesting things that are happening today on draft day. We got a lot of interesting draft things to talk about as we have the first round of the draft today. We've got some interesting draft trades that could be happening. We have some interesting picks that could be happening. So definitely love to hear you. Stay tuned for this. My Wi-Fi is not the greatest, so I do apologize for that. But some interesting stuff to be talked about here today, as we do have some interesting draft rumors. Plus, we got some interesting draft trades that we're gonna have to talk about. So I'd love for you guys to stay tuned, and I'm going to talk about some of the interesting stuff. Now, at this point in time, we haven't been able to officially start the draft. It should be happening not just in the future, but some earlier rumors from today. Pierre LeBrun was tweeting out a little bit that the National Predators have gotten some calls on Yaroslav Askarov. So some interesting stuff here. Oh, and we do have the first overall pick, which is officially Macklin Celebrini. That's not too surprising there. Macklin Celebrini goes first overall to the San Jose Sharks. Celebrini is really good. He's a solid top line, center. He looks to be eventually a solid, fantastic center for the San Jose Sharks. Not sure if he'll officially go to Boston College this year, if he'll sign his ELC, but no surprise there. Sharks take Celebrini first overall. Not too surprised that happened, and he would be a really good pickup there for Sharks at first overall. So a really good pickup there for San Jose at number one. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Chicago number two. There's been some talk about Levshinov. There's been some talk about maybe them drafting a guy like Ivan Demidov, so we'll have to wait and see which way the Blackhawks go, but Sharks do take Macklin Celebrini first overall. Now, talking about some of the recent draft rumors from our past couple of days, we do have a couple of rumors, including Stamkos seems to be heading to free agency according to Pierre LeBrun, which is not too much of a surprise. It sounds like they're too far apart on a trade, on a contract extension, and it sounds like they tried to offer him 8 years at $3 million. That's really bad if you're trying to get Stamkos signed. He was never going to take that, so that's interesting to note. On top of that, it sounds like Yaroslav Askarov was having some interesting trade discussions with the National Predators. It sounds like he is probably going to... It seems like he is probably going to wind up potentially being moved. We'll have to wait and see, but that's a really good thing there for the San Jose Sharks. That's a really good thing there for the... That's interesting to note there for Nashville, given the fact that they just signed Saros. I think I forgot to mention this, but Saros had a 7-year contract extension or 8-year contract extension announced yesterday with AV of $7.74 million that we're going to start next year. It's a pretty good pickup there for the Predators to sign Nashville, to sign Saros to an extension. So it's left a lot of people concerning what happens with Askarov in question, so we'll have to wait and see on that, but interesting stuff there. It seems like there could be some more trades. We saw a trade earlier today. We saw the Montreal Canadiens acquire the 21st overall pick from the LA Kings in exchange for the 26th overall pick, 56th overall pick, and there was another lower end pick too, so interesting stuff there. It sounds like the Canadiens still want to try and move higher in this draft, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I've also seen some recent reports saying that Nazem Kadri might be on the trade block by Calgary Flames. Darren Dreger's poured some cold water on this. But it does sound like the Kadri might be able to be moved out of Calgary. It'll be interesting to see. They're sort of going in retool mode right now, so we'll have to wait and see, but it seems like Kadri could be on the block for the Calgary Flames, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. So interesting stuff there. Celebrini does go first overall, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Blackhawks as they pick number 2. So some interesting stuff there. Just hold on a minute here. I just got to reset some things. Just give me a minute. Hold on. Let's see if this works. Okay, so we've got some interesting things still going over. It sounds like the Blackhawks are going to be on the clock in the not distant future, so we've got some interesting stuff going for them. On top of that, like we said, we've got some interesting rumors to be going over the past couple of days. You have the Flames potentially moving Kadri. You also have the Bolt's most likely moving on from Stamkos. You also have a couple of other interesting things. So we have some interesting rumors from over the past couple of days. I'll be interested to see if we find any draft trades over today. So interesting stuff there. We did have a couple of trades last night. I'll go through them quickly while we wait for pick number 2. So interesting to note that the Washington Capitals acquired Mangiapane from the Calgary Flames in exchange for a couple of picks. So in exchange for a second-round pick. So it was a decent trade for both sides. Mangiapane is a really good winger. For the Capitals, they get a second-round pick. For the Capitals, they move on from a second-round pick, so it's a decent move there. Maybe Mangiapane extends in Washington is a possibility, so we'll have to wait and see. On top of that, we do have a couple of other interesting things. Including the Sharks and the Sabres made a draft swap yesterday, with the Sharks acquiring the first 11th overall pick from the Sabres in exchange for the 14th and 42nd. It was an interesting trade, and one that I think both teams really win, so I think that was a pretty good pick. So like we said, Celebrini is the first pick. The second pick is on the clock right now, so we've got some interesting stuff there. Also looking at some other things that have happened. If you look at we also saw another trade today, so we saw 2 trades today. Just to recap, because I never did any videos earlier today, 2 trades that happened earlier today. First, the Montreal Canadiens acquired the 21st overall pick from the LA Kings in exchange for the 26th overall pick, 57th overall pick, and 198th overall pick. So that's the Canadiens' 7th round pick, the Avalanche's 2nd round pick, and the Jets' 1st round pick. So it's a decent haul for the Kings. They get an extra 2nd round pick and a 7th round pick in this year's draft. So it's either going to help them get some more young players, or it's going to be able to help them move off some pieces to try and improve in other areas. Meanwhile, they do move down 5 selections. Meanwhile, for the Habs, they move up 5 selections. A lot of people think they could move up once again, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens for the Canadiens, but they did move up 5 slots and got a couple of extra draft picks. Meanwhile, for the other trade that we saw today, the St. Louis Blues the other trade we saw today, the St. Louis Blues wound up trading with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Trades as follows. The Blue Jackets trade Alex Texier's signing rights to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a 2025 4th round pick. So it's a decent move for both sides. For the Jackets, they were able to get a 4th round pick for someone who was maybe not going to re-sign with Columbus anymore, so that's interesting to note. For the Blues, they get a solid top 9 forward who was an RFA, and they didn't need signing. There's been a couple of signings also that's happened today. I haven't been able to get around to any of the signings that happened over today, so we'll get to all of those here too. Just hold on, it sounds like the Blackhawks pick might be in. Just give me a second here. It seems like not at this point in time, but it sounds like the Hawks pick is coming up, so when we do know that, I will give you who the Hawks pick at 2nd overall. But 1st overall, we do know that it's Celebrini who's going to be 1st overall. We do have to figure out who's going to be 2nd overall, so interesting stuff there. So going back to some of the signings that happened from over the past couple of days, earlier today, we saw a couple of interesting signings. The Buffalo Sabres have extended the RFA Cale Clegg. The defenseman gets a 1-year contract extension with the AV of 2 Gets a one-year contract extension with AV of $75,000. They'll begin at the start of next year. Clegg showed this year he can be a solid depth defenseman call-up option for the Sabres, so it's a pretty good sign there for the Sabres. The Dallas Stars wound up getting Alex Petrovic. Petrovic, who's a right-shot defenseman, who's a UFA, gets a 2-year extension with AV of $175,000. Once again, solid depth signing. Pretty good, decent player, so I think getting Petrovic's a pretty good pickup there for the Stars. The Edmonton Oilers pick up Cam Dineen. Dineen, who was also a UFA, gets a 2-year deal with AV at $175,000. Another solid call-up option, just like Petrovic is. So Dallas and Edmonton are able to get some depth on the blue line. The Utah winds up extending Michael Kesselring, one of the RFA defensemen. Actually had a fantastic year this past season. He's a right-shot defenseman. He gets a 2-year deal with AV of $1.4 million. Utah has money to spend. I think Kesselring is going to be a fantastic defender, so that's a pretty good pickup there for Utah. Just wait a second here while I look and see. Apparently, the Blackhawks are taking Artem Levshunov, so my predictions from my last mock draft are true. The Blackhawks go with the big right-shot defenseman at 2nd overall, so that's really good for the Blackhawks. Levshunov, I think, is going to be a fantastic top-4 right-shot defenseman, resembles a lot of Reinbacher, but a little bit better than him, so I think this is going to be a fantastic pickup for the Blackhawks, taking Levshunov at number 2. There were some people out there who thought that they might go after Demidov, but I thought Levshunov was the pick for them. They have a lot of really good forward prospects with with guys like Nazer, Moore, a couple of other really good prospects there too. So they have a really good forward prospect pool, but they don't have a whole bunch of elite level defensive prospects. So they go the Levshinov route. They go for a top right shot defenseman, and they've got their future D partner, future top D pair, and Korchinski and Levshinov in their system now. So that's a really fantastic pickup there for the Hawks, and I think Levshinov should help them continue on with their. I think Levshinov should really continue to help them with continuing on with their building their blue line. So I think it's a pretty good pickup there for the Blackhawks. Meanwhile, we'll go over back to the signings from our past couple of days after. We'll go back to the signings from our past couple of days as we look to see who goes third overall to the Anaheim Ducks. I could see Dickinson go here. I could see Salayev. I could see another one of the young defensemen. Buyam has been a guy who's been mentioned to Anaheim a lot recently, so we'll have to wait and see who goes to Anaheim. But Ducks are next, so interesting to see there. Going back to a couple of recent signings, Matt Kierstead, who's a solid depth defender for the Florida Panthers, signs a 1-year $775,000 deal to remain with the Florida Panthers. It's pretty good for them. Kierstead's a really good Kierstead was a pretty good defender for the Florida Panthers. Looked pretty good, so I think it's a pretty good pickup there for the Florida Panthers to extend Kierstead as a depth defenseman. We also have Patrick Gillies, who's a solid depth defenseman. Who's a solid depth forward. He gets a 2-year extension with AAV of $775,000. He's a really fantastic AHL player. Could eventually maybe be a call-up option. So some pretty good depth signings there for Florida to sign Kierstead and Gillies this year. Today, we also saw St. Louis Blues extend Alex Texier after acquiring him. They signed him a 2-year deal with AAV of $2.1 million. They'll begin at the start of next year. My guess is he probably replaces Kapanen in the third line. Texier is a really good third line forward, provides some depth, and I think he could be a really good pickup there for the St. Louis Blues. So Texier winds up going to the Blues via a trade, and then on top of that, the Blues extend him. So that's a pretty good pickup there for St. Louis. We also saw Calvin Pickard be extended by the be extended by the Edmonton Oilers. A little bit surprising there. I thought he might go to free agency, but he gets a 2-year extension with AAV of $1 million at the beginning of the start of next year. Pickard actually looked pretty good this year as like a backup for when he was called upon, and I think he should be continuing to be a solid backup. But with Pickard and Skinner now locked up for the next couple of years, I do wonder if that means we'll see Campbell's contract be moved on from at some point this year, whether it be a buyout or a move. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but that's an interesting move there for the Oilers to extend Calvin Pickard. So that's really good stuff there. On top of that, we've got a couple of other interesting things to talk about. There was a buyout earlier today. Cam Atkinson with the Philadelphia Flyers was bought out. So that's an interesting buyout there for the Philadelphia Flyers. I think it saves them around $3.2 million, if I'm correct, in cap space. So it's a pretty good pickup there for the Flyers to move on from Atkinson. He's going to be a free agent. So I would expect a lot of teams, if they can get him for something like a 1-year deal at like $2 million, there would be a ton of teams interested in Atkinson. So some interesting stuff there, but it sounds like Atkinson will most likely wind up being being a free agent, and he's been placed on waivers for a purpose of buyout. So interesting stuff there. At this point in time, just to recap here, we do have the first 2 picks of this year's draft. They are just like I predicted. Macklin Celebrini went first overall to the San Jose Sharks, and Artem Levshinov went second overall to the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll have to wait and see if Sam Dickinson does go third like my last mock draft said so, or if some of the recent rumors like Zeev Buyam will be the third overall pick for the Anaheim Ducks. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Ducks, depending on who they go after. Just give me a second here. Just gotta switch some things up. Here. Hold on a minute here. That works. Okay, so back to some of the things we've had. So we've had a couple of decent trades from over the past couple of days, some interesting signings, a buyout earlier today, so we've got some interesting things. So I wonder who goes to number 3 overall. Let me know down in the chat who you think the Ducks will go with. Will it be Buyam? Will it be Dickinson? Will it be Salayev? Will it be Demidov? Lindstrom? Who do you think they go after? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that, and who you think winds up being taken here at 3rd overall for the Anaheim Ducks. Some interesting stuff there. So some interesting things that could wind up happening here at 3rd overall in this draft. So interesting stuff to happen. So like we said, let's see if there's any updates on some rumors that could be happening from over the next couple of little while. It sounds like there's still some picks that could be traded at some points. It sounds like things really get interesting at 4th overall with the Jackets. It looks like the Ducks pick is in. They're just about to announce the Anaheim Ducks pick. So that'll be interesting to see who goes to number 3. It'll be interesting to see who goes to Anaheim. It seems like it's just about to come up. I said Dickinson. It could be Bouillon, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But I expect the Ducks to maybe go on defense. Could see him go after the forward like a Lindstrom or a Levshunov, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But there's a very likely chance we see him go after a defenseman. So interesting stuff there, but we're about to get the Ducks pick here. Just give me a second. And the Ducks take Beckett Seneke, 3rd overall. Oh my goodness, that's quite a shock in my opinion. Seneke goes 3rd overall to the Anaheim Ducks. That's a surprise. Seneke, I was expecting to go in the late 10s to mid 10 to 20s. That's a surprise. Seneke's a solid top 6 forward. It looks like eventually he could be a solid player there for the Ducks on their forward group. I mean, that's a pretty good pickup there. He's a right winger. He's 6'2", 175 pounds, coming off a season where he had 27 goals and 68 points in 63 OHL games. That's a monster reach for the Ducks to get Seneke. So that's a pretty high pickup there for the Ducks. That's the one who I did not have going 3rd overall, and that's going to leave the Jackets with some choices. There's still Demidov, Levshunov, Dickinson, Salayev. There's a couple of decent options here for the Jackets to go after. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with the Jackets, but Seneke is going 3rd overall to the Anaheim Ducks. So that's interesting to note there for Anaheim. We do have a couple of other interesting things that are coming in the not too distant future. So just give me a second here. I'm just going to look something up. Let's see here. We've got some interesting things going on right now. So interesting to note. So at this point in time, 1st overall goes... At this point in time, 1st overall went Macklin Celebrini. Not too surprised there. He's the consensus number 1 overall pick, so not too surprised he went 1st overall. 2nd overall, we had Artem Levshunov with the Chicago Blackhawks. That's a fantastic pickup there for the Blackhawks to take Levshunov. And on top of that, at 3rd overall, we had Beckett Seneke going to Anaheim. That's a complete surprise. So some interesting stuff there, but we do have interesting stuff from over the past couple of days. And it sounds like we could have some more interesting stuff with the Blue Jackets and Canadians going next. So some interesting stuff there. Just give me a second here. So we got some interesting things here from over the past couple of days, but we've had a really interesting start to the 1st round. I do wonder if we see some trades in the not too distant future. I could see it happening in the not too distant future, but that's an interesting piece of work there for the Ducks to take Seneke. I thought he was going to go mid 1st round. I thought he would probably go in like the 15 to 20 range, and he does wind up going higher than that. So that's interesting to note there for the Ducks. So interesting stuff there, but the Ducks do pick Beckett Seneke, so that's a little bit of a surprise. So we're going to have 4th overall in the not too distant future. The Jackets are being the team who picks. So we'll have to wait and see if the Jackets do wind up taking someone, or if the Jackets, we'll see who the Jackets take. So at 4th overall, it'll be interesting to see who the Jackets take. I don't know. The Beckett Seneke's reaction to being taken 3rd overall is quite surprising. I am quite shocked that the Ducks go Seneke 3rd overall. That's quite a surprise. I mean, last year, there's a lot of talk about them going for a surprise when they were taking 2nd overall. They wound up taking Carlson instead of Fantilli, which wasn't overly surprising. A lot of people thought Fantilli would have gone 2nd, but it was not too surprising them going after Carlson. It's quite shocking to see them go after Seneke. So that's interesting to note here. The Jackets are about to have the 4th overall pick. It'll be interesting to see what happens for the Jackets. it sounds like, according to Frank Saravalli, who just posted this a minute ago over on Twitter, he says that the Jackets and Habs phones are blowing up with the fact that Demidov, Lindstrom, Dickinson, Salayev are all still available. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if we saw a trade or something here in the not just in future. And if they do pick, I wouldn't be overly surprised if the Jackets go after the defenseman or one of the top end forwards. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens here. But I think the Seneke pick has sort of made some interesting notions here for what could happen. So some interesting stuff there. We do have a couple of other interesting things that seem to be happening in the not just in future. So next we have the Jackets pick, then we have the Habs pick, then we have the then we have Utah's pick, Ottawa's pick, we have the Kraken's pick, Flames pick, and Devils pick to round out the top 10. So I do wonder if we see any sort of moves to happen over the next little while. But interesting to note, Seneke goes 3rd overall to Anaheim. That's a complete shocker, in my opinion, to see Seneke go to Anaheim. I mean, I thought Seneke would go 17 through 20. He winds up going a little bit higher. So that's a really good pickup there for the Ducks, but one I was definitely not expecting. So interesting. The first surprises off the board. First and second was the two people who I expected to go first and second, Levchinov and Bedard. So interesting stuff there, and he's going to go. And we're going to see what happens at number 4. The Jackets are picking number 4. I could see this go for a trade. There's been a lot of talk about the Jackets potentially moving the 4th overall pick. There's also been some talk about them going after the defenseman like a Dickinson or a Salayev or something like that. There's also been some talk with them going after a forward like Demidov. I predicted them to take Demidov, given the fact of how many Russians they have with Provorov and Chinnikov and Voronkov and a couple of other really good Russian players, Marchenko. They have a lot of really good Russian players. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if they took Demidov, but with the way that this happened, I could see him go out in a different route. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Going over to 4th overall. But yeah, taking Seneke at 3rd overall is completely shocking. We did get a couple of updates with the Rumours today. It sounds like Nashville's getting calls on... It sounds like Nashville's getting calls on Yaroslav Askarov. He's a really good prospect goaltender. There was an update yesterday that UC Saros signed a 7-year, $7.74 million deal to remain with the Columbus Blue Jacket, with the Nashville Predators. So that's a pretty good pickup there. The Columbus Blue Jackets are picking right now, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are just taking Caden Lindstrom from the WHL, so that's interesting to note there. So the Jackets are able to get Lindstrom. That's not too much of a surprise. Lindstrom and Demidov are the two best forwards in this draft. I thought they could trade down. I thought they could go after the defenseman, but Lindstrom goes 4th overall to Columbus. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Jackets. They could use another solid top 6 center. They already have some really good centers with guys like Sillinger and Fantilli in the lineup, so adding Lindstrom will give them a fantastic 1-2-3 punch down the middle long term of Sillinger, Lindstrom, and Fantilli. So that's a pretty good pickup there. Lindstrom, just hold on, let me check here. Just give me 1 minute. Lindstrom is a center. He can play the wing if he needs to. He was 6'3", 210 pounds. He's a really, really good power forward. I think... he's coming off a season where he had 27 goals and 46 points in 32 games. Does have some injury history, so that's a little bit of a concern. Might have been why he falls to number 4, but Lindstrom is a fantastic player and a really good pickup there for the Jackets, taking him from the WHL from the Medicine Hat. So interesting stuff there. So we got some interesting notes there, but at this point in time, we have Seneke taken 3rd overall by Anaheim, Lindstrom taking 4th overall by Columbus, 2nd overall is Levchinov by the Chicago Blackhawks, and 1st overall is the San Jose Sharks taking Macklin Celebrini, which is not too much of a surprise. Definitely. Love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the chat. Are you surprised by any of the things that have happened at this point in time? And what do you think of all of this that's happened so far? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that. And don't forget to continue to stay tuned, as we will have some more live draft coverage, as Lindstrom's going to Columbus, Seneke to Anaheim, Levchinov to Chicago, San Jose is taking Celebrini, and we do have a couple of other interesting things that are going to be happening in not just in the future. So stay tuned. We could get some trades. There's been some talk about the Habs maybe trading down, with them already having so many really good picks. There's also been some talk about, after them trading the 21st overall pick, acquiring it from LA, that they could maybe trade up in the draft and try and get another top 10 pick. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens here, but this is going to be an interesting pick here. This is going to be an interesting pick here nonetheless for the Habs. So interesting to see Lindstrom go to Columbus. Not too surprised, but he was the guy who the Habs were heavily considering if rumors stand correct. So it'll be interesting to see which way the Habs go now. According to Frank Saravalli, the Habs are making the pick and not trading it, so the Habs will not be trading down, which means that we'll have to see what happens with Utah. There's been some talk about Utah, Ottawa, potentially moving down to the draft, Jersey. So we'll have to wait and see on those 3 picks, but it does sound like, according to Frank Saravalli, the Habs are making their picks, so it'll be interesting to see which way they go. They have a lot of really good defensive prospects. They have Mailloux coming up in the not distant future. They have Reinbacher. They have Hudson, who just signed his ELC. So they have a lot of really good prospects coming up in their system on the defensive end. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went after a forward. There's been some talk that they could go after Demidov and try and erase what happened last year with them passing on Michkov. I think that's a possibility. There's some other decent forwards here. Some people say they could go after a guy like Tijigenla. He could be a really good fit there in Montreal. If not, could they go after one of these defensemen like a Dickinson, Salayev, Levshunov's taken at Buyam. So it'll be interesting to see exactly which way they go. There's also been some talk about maybe going after another forward, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but that could be a really good pickup there for the Habs, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens, but Habs will be picking, according to Frank Saravalli, and I don't know which way the Montreal Canadiens are going to go. A lot of Habs fans are probably hoping for Demidov. We shall see what happens. Interesting to note there, but we do have some interesting things from over the past little while, and we will have some more over the next little while. So definitely don't forget to stay tuned. Love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chats on the draft so far. On top of that, what do you think about this draft so far? And we got some more rumors, trades, picks to be made. And I know my Wi-Fi is a little bit crappy, so forgive the screen a little bit, but definitely don't forget to keep tuned as we continue to do another draft live video here. So don't forget to stay tuned for that. On top of that, we've got some interesting things to talk about. It sounds like the Habs are going next at 5th overall, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there for Montreal. So some interesting things there. We got some more rumors, it sounds like, coming up in the not distant future, so we got some things. It'll be interesting to see what's the first team who makes a move. Just don't let it be like last year. Last year I was expecting a move of some sorts to happen, and it never did, so that's really bad news there for the Ducks. I mean, that's really bad news there for me, given the fact I was hoping that we were going to have some trades and some action on the draft floor, and it never happened. So I'm really hoping we get some trades here today. I don't care what sort of a deal it is. I don't care if it's pick swaps or a player getting traded or something like that, but I do hope that we do get some interesting trades that happen later today. So hopefully that happens, but some interesting trades could happen over the next little while. So interesting stuff there. On top of that, it sounds like we could get some interesting updates on the trade and rumor mark over the next little while. The picks are about to come in. We know Montreal's next, so we'll have to wait and see on what happens there for the Montreal Canadiens. So interesting stuff there, but they're on the clock now. Let's see. No updates yet. I could see Demidov going here. We could see. I'm not sure if Levshinov. I'm not sure if Dickinson could go here, or I'm not sure if Buyam could go here. So interesting to see. It looks like Montreal's making their way to the stage to pick who's going 5th overall. So interesting stuff there. There's also been some talk earlier today that they could be open to moving some of the older players like Dvorak or Armia or things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if they continue to make some moves today. But it sounds like the pick is in, and they will be picking just right now. So we'll see who they go after. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Demidov. Could be a defenseman. Would be a little bit shocked if it's a defenseman. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I do think we could see Demidov here. We'll see. They're just announcing the pick right now. Just give me a minute. Let's see. And the pick is in. It sounds like it is going to be for the Montreal Canadiens. Let's see here. They take... Just wait a sec, they're still announcing the pick, so just give it a second, and then we'll see who the Habs take at 5th overall after Lindstrom goes 4th, Seneke goes 3rd, second is Levshinov, and 1st is Celebrini. So interesting stuff there. We'll see who goes next. So interesting stuff there. According to a couple of reports too, while we wait for this thing, it sounds like Nikita Zadorov will not go back to the Vancouver Canucks. So interesting stuff there. Zadorov was a really good player. Probably go free agent market. Probably go to Toronto. So we'll have to wait and see on what happens there. But definitely, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think about Zadorov. Does he get $5 million? Does he get $6 million? What's his term and where does he go if he is not going to be signing with the Vancouver Canucks? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that. Definitely have to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that stuff. It sounds like Montreal's pick is just about to be coming in, so we will be waiting on that. It's about to come in. It's going to be an interesting selection nonetheless. The Habs do not trade out of 5th overall, so it will be interesting to see who they go after. 1 was Celebrini to San Jose. 2 was Lev Shinov to Chicago. 3 was Seneki to Anaheim. 4 was Lindstrom to Columbus, and we're just about to see who goes 5th overall to the Montreal Canadiens. So interesting stuff here as we continue to see who winds up going where. And it is Ivan Demidov going to the Montreal Canadiens at 5th overall. A little bit, not really surprised here. If Demidov fell to Montreal, I don't think it's too much of a surprise that Demidov would have gone, that the Canadiens would have gone with Demidov. He's a fantastic player, a really great Russian. Some think he could even be a little bit better than Michkov, so that's a really good pickup there for the Canadiens, getting Demidov at 5th overall. He's a right winger, playing over in Russia, so once again, probably going to need a couple of years to stew in the KHL before his contract expires, but he's 6 feet, 196 pounds, really good skating abilities, coming off a year where he had 30 games played in the MHL, putting up 23 goals and 60 points, looked absolutely fantastic. So I think this is a really good pickup there for the Canadiens to take Demidov at 5th overall. And now we go over to Utah, their first ever draft selection. We'll see what happens with Utah as they have the 6th overall pick. Do they move it? Do they move down a little bit? Do they try and trade it for a pickup? Do they try and keep it? I don't know exactly which way they'll go, so it'll be interesting to see. But we will be having some interesting things for our next couple of days and seeing exactly who ends up going where. But it does seem like Demidov will be going to Montreal now at 5th overall. So we'll have to wait and see who goes 6th overall, 7th overall, 8th overall. But the top 5 picks are in. Demidov's 5 to Montreal. Lindstrom's 4 to Columbus. Seneki is 3 to Anaheim. Levshinov's 2 to Chicago. And 1 is Celebrini to San Jose. So that's interesting to note there. And hopefully we'll have some more over the next little while. Continuing to work here on some rumors that could be happening over the next little while. I hope to have a new trade rumor trade board over the next couple of days. Hopefully going to somewhere around 40-45 players over the next couple of days. So don't forget to stay tuned for that. I'll be posting that on my blog. So don't forget to stay tuned. And I will try and continue to have updated videos on the draft, free agency, trades that are happening. So interesting stuff there. But the Montreal Canadiens do take Demidov. So it's interesting to note there. Like we said, some interesting rumors from over the past couple of days. It sounds like Stamkos is heading to free agency and will not be back with Tampa. It sounds like Zadorov's going to free agency. Prez is getting calls on Askarov, so it'll be interesting to see if they wind up moving him. We got a couple of other interesting rumors. It'll be interesting to see exactly who goes where, but definitely some interesting stuff. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens, but definitely it'll be interesting to see if what Utah does. Now, in my draft picks, in my mock draft, if I can remember correctly, I might be wrong about this, but I think I had Salayev go to Utah at 6th overall. I thought it would be a really good pickup there, but with the way this draft's gone, with Seneki going 3rd overall, I think the other top 4 were projected, in my opinion, to go top 4. I thought Demidov, Levshinov, Lindstrom, and Celebrini would definitely be in the top 4, but it'll be interesting to see exactly who else goes where. So you got Dickinson still available. I could see him be a really good fit there for Utah. You have Salayev, like I said, he could be a really good fit. You have Buyam, you have Perek, you have Yakimchuk. There's a lot of really, really good defensemen. And if they wanted to go after a forward, I think they have some pretty good forwards already on their team. But if you wanted to go after some forwards, they could go after guys maybe like a maybe like a TJ Genla. Could a Genla be a really good fit there in Utah? I think that could be a really good fit. So it'll be interesting to see exactly which way they go. But it does seem like we could see some interesting moves there from Utah. And I'm not exactly sure if they'll trade down. There's been some talk about that. I'm not sure if they'll take a defenseman. There's been a lot of talk about that. I'm not sure if they'll go after a Genla. I've seen a couple people say they could go after a guy like TJ Genla. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But we do have the first 5 picks. And hopefully the next 5 picks are going to be really good too. So some interesting stuff there. But we do have the first 5 picks. My top 5 mock draft for my last mock draft that I posted, I think it was earlier this week on like Sunday or Monday. My top 5 was Celebrini, Levshunov, Dickinson, Demidov, and then I think I had the Montreal Canadiens taking Lindstrom. So instead, it does go 1-2, Celebrini and Levshunov. Instead of Dickinson, the Ducks go after Seneke. I thought they might go after someone a little bit off the board. I thought Dickinson at 3 was a little bit off the board. I was not expecting Seneke. And then on top of that, you also have 4 and 5 swapping. I thought the Jackets will go after Demidov and the Canadiens after Lindstrom. Instead, it goes the Jackets went after Lindstrom and left the Canadiens with Demidov. So that's pretty good pickups there for those 5 teams. Hopefully those guys are able to get some really good roles. Not sure if all of those guys will be in the NHL next year. Levshunov, I could maybe see him sign his ELC, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to college. Demidov's probably going to go back to the KHL. Lindstrom's probably going to also go back to the WHL after his injury-riddled season this year. Seneke definitely most likely is going to go back to the OHL. There's also even been some talk about Celebrini going to back to college. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but it'll be interesting to see. Utah's pick is in, so for the first time ever, the Utah franchise will be making a draft selection. It'll be interesting to see who goes to Utah, but it seems that the pick is in, and Utah will be making the selection, so that rules out any sort of a trade. So we'll have to wait and see if Ottawa makes a trade. The Senators, there's been some talk about them potentially moving pick number 7 to try and make something happen. So I do wonder if we see something like that. So it'll be interesting to see. I could see them move Demidov. I mean, I could see them move the 7th overall pick to try and get some upgrades. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But it sounds like the Utah pick is in. We shall be just about to have it announced. So good to see that Utah is able to pick. It's going to be their first ever draft selection. And with the first ever draft selection in Utah franchise history, Utah is taking TJ Genla. So this was something I was expecting. It's a possibility, and it does wind up happening. Genla is going to Utah. That's interesting to note. That's a little bit of a surprise in my opinion. I thought Utah would have gone for the defenseman. They could definitely use some size on their blue line, some more blue liners. They didn't have anyone signed up to this point until they signed Kesselring earlier today. So I thought they were going after the defenseman. They go after TJ Genla. That's a fantastic pickup there. And the Genla's off the board, so it won't be going to Calgary. That's definitely a non-starter now at this point in time. So Genla's going to be a fantastic fit for Utah. I don't think he'll make it at this point in time. To the NHL, probably going to need a year in the juniors to continue to develop. But he's a fantastic player, has some really high level potential. I think he could be a really good pickup there for the Utah franchise. He has top 6 potential. He could eventually be a solid second first liner. He could be sort of like Jerome, his dad, was at the NHL level. Not sure if he'll ever be as good as Jerome Iginla was, but TJ Iginla is going to be a fantastic pickup there for Utah. And I had Iginla going at 8th overall to Seattle in my mock draft that I just recently finished. He goes 6th overall to Utah. So interesting stuff there, but Utah goes and gets TJ Genla, and that's a little bit of a surprise in my opinion, as they are able to get Genla. So interesting stuff there, but that's going to be adding to a fantastic pickup there and a fantastic prospect pool there for Utah. They're just debuting their new jerseys, so it looked pretty good given the fact they don't have a name. Hopefully they will have a name soon, and we will be knowing if their team name is like Yeti or Mammoth or what it's going to be. But it'll be interesting to see. But Genla is the 6th overall pick, and he'll be heading to Utah, with Utah having their first ever selection be TJ Genla. So interesting to note there. Ottawa's on the clock now. Now for them, I would definitely expect them to go after the defenseman. There was some talk about them going after a guy like a Genla or maybe even a a guy like Sinicki if they were available at that point. But with so many forwards going off, the Senators had the pick of the crop for their defensemen. They could go after Dickinson, they could go after Salayev, they could go after a guy like Perek, they could go after a guy like Yakimchuk, they could go after a guy like Bouillon. The Senators need defensive help, mostly on the right side, but if there's a really good left shot defenseman that they value a lot, I wouldn't be overly surprised if that happens and they go for the left side defenseman. But they could use a lot of really good defensive prospects. They have a ton of really good forward prospects, so they could use some more defensive prospects. And I would not be overly surprised if one of those 5 guys, Dickinson, Bouillon, Salayev, or some of the other guys could wind up being the Senators' pick. Just give me a second here. Hold on a minute. Just give me a second. So, interesting to note there, but we are about to see who goes to Ottawa at 7th overall. Like I said, could see Dickinson, could see Salayev, could see Bouillon, even though they're all left shot defensemen. Maybe more likely Perek or Yakimchuk are the pick here, but that could be a really good pickup there for the Ottawa Senators. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who goes there, but the Senators are next on the board. Do wonder if they consider maybe moving down. There's been some talk about them moving the 7th overall pick, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But interesting to note, Chris Johnson just tweeted out that Josh Stone and TJ Gendla are both going to be playing on the same team. Interesting to note there. After sons of former really good NHL players in Josh and Shane Doan and Jerome Gendla. So interesting to note there, and hopefully that's a really good pickup there for Utah. So interesting to note. But we do have some more interesting things that are going to be happening over the next little while. Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the chats. If you want to leave a chat, what do you think about the things that have happened so far? Are you surprised that Utah gets a Gendla? Are you surprised that Montreal gets Demidov, Columbus gets Lindstrom, Levshinov goes to Chicago, Sinicki goes to Anaheim, or Celebrini goes to San Jose? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think of these things down in the comment section below or down in the chat. Love to hear your guys' thoughts on this so far. But definitely, it's been an interesting draft nonetheless. I do wonder if we see some more trades rumors over the next little while. Let's see if there's anything on the trade front right now. Let's see. Doesn't seem like it, at least at this point in time. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see if Elliot Freeman has anything at this point. No, at this point it doesn't seem like it. So interesting to note there, but it doesn't seem like we have anything here. At this point in time, when it comes to trade speculation, 7th overall was on the block, 10th overall was on the block. Buffalo's 11th overall pick was on the block before I trade down. Do wonder if they consider moving 14th overall. There's still a lot of really good players here. I do wonder if the Senators consider going after a forward. If they do, could they go after a guy like Berkel Catan or Michael Branson-Nygaard? I think it's a little bit too high for them at this point in time. But I do think we could see the Senators go after a defenseman. You could go after Dickinson, really good, big, physical, mobile. You can put up puck in the net. You go after Bouillon, who had some really good offensive upside. You could go after Salayev, who's a really good skater and really, really big. You could go after Perek, who I think positionally could be the best fit for the Senators. You could go after Yakimchuk, who I think is a little bit worse than Perek, but might be more well-rounded defenseman. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who the Senators go after, but definitely going to be some interesting things over the next little while. So interesting stuff there. And TJ Gendla does wind up going ahead of his dad. Jerome was taken 11th overall in the 1995 draft. TJ Gendla is taken 6th overall, so interesting to note there that Gendla was taken a little bit higher. And it seems like the Senators are about to go up and make their selection. So it'll be interesting to see who they go after. Could see him go after, like I said, defenseman, I think is most likely. So interesting to note. So it'll be interesting to see who's the next few picks. Ottawa's picking here. Seattle's then picking with Gendla off the board, with some of those other forwards off the board. I could see him go after the defenseman too. Flames, same sort of thing. If Gendla was still on the board, I could have seen him go after Gendla, but with Gendla not on the board anymore, I definitely think they could go after a guy like hold on a sec, like a defenseman like a Bouillon. I had him go in my mock draft to Calgary, so it'll be interesting to see. For the Senators, I had them taking Perek. We'll see if I'm right or not. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Senators. Still haven't heard very much on the trade front over the last little while. And the Senators are taking with the 7th overall pick. Hold on. They do take Carter Yakimchuk. Okay, so not overly surprising here positionally. He might have been the second best fit in my opinion, besides Parekh. But that's a really good pickup there for the Ottawa Senators. I mean, Yakimchuk's really good. Hold on a minute. I'll double check his stats from over the past little while. Yakimchuk. So the Senators get Yakimchuk. Yakimchuk was a right shot defenseman, 6'3", 190 pounds, coming off a season where he had 30 goals and 71 points in 66 WHL games. He looked fantastic this year in the WHL. Looks like eventually could be a solid, really good, well-rounded top 4 right shot defenseman, which is something that this Ottawa Senators team desperately needs. They could definitely use a top 4 right shot defenseman to try and round out that team with guys like Shabbat, Chikrin, Zub, and Sanderson on it. So Yakimchuk at 7th overall is a very fantastic piece of work there for the Ottawa Senators. So they take him at 7th overall. I would have gone with Parekh at this point in time with the available defenseman. I thought he would have probably been the best fit positionally, but Yakimchuk is not too bad of a pick here, and I think he should be a very good pick there long term for the Ottawa Senators. So I think that's a really good pick up there for Ottawa, taking Yakimchuk. At 8th overall is now going to be the Seattle Kraken. I do wonder who they go after. Could they go after the defenseman too? There's still Salayev on the board, Buyam, Dickinson, who I've had going a little bit higher than where he's dropping to right now. You have Salayev, Buyam, Dickinson, Parex's apparently still available, so I do wonder which way they go. I could see him go after a left shot defenseman, maybe a little bit more likely than a right shot defenseman, but it'll be interesting to see. I, for the longest time, had them taking Buyam before I had them taking Iginla in my last mock draft. With Iginla now off, I do wonder which way the Seattle Kraken go. I don't think they'll trade their pick. I think it's a little bit less likely, but I do expect the Devils and the Sabres picks to still be on the block. There's been some talk about Montreal, so it'll be interesting to see, but we still at this point in time have not had a trade, which is a little bit disappointing in my opinion, given the fact that it's been so interesting so far with the past couple of years with all the trades before last year. So hopefully we see a trade. If you guys think we'll see a trade, let me know down in the chat what you think the trade will be. Definitely love to hear your guys' opinion on this, so it'll be interesting to see what you guys think. But yeah, Yakimchuk's going at 7th overall to the Ottawa Senators, so it's a pretty good pickup there for the Ottawa Senators, taking Yakimchuk. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Ottawa Senators. Going over to just a quick recap here. So so far in this year's draft, first overall is Macklin Celebrini, not too surprised. Consensus first overall pick. A lot of people were expecting Celebrini to go first overall. He goes to his place where he plays junior hockey. He was with the Junior Sharks, so really good to see him go there. At 2nd overall, not a surprise to me at least, but the Chicago Blackhawks took Artem Levshinov, solid top 4 right shot defenseman, could eventually be a solid top pair right shot defenseman. A great D partner for a guy like a great D partner for a guy like Korchinski, who they had his first full season this year, so that could be a really good pickup there for the Hawks. Really good, well-rounded defenseman. At 3rd overall, we had the Anaheim Ducks going way off the board and taking Beckett Senek at 3rd overall. Senek is a really good top 6 right shot defenseman, right winger. I think eventually Senek could be a really good winger for a guy like a Leo Carlson or something like that. Could be a really good top 6 winger. So they already have a lot of really good centers. So going after a winger is a little bit not too surprising there for the Ducks, and they take Senek. At 4th overall, had the Jackets take Lindstrom. Lindstrom falls into their laps. Solid top 6 center. Had some injury history. It's going to be a little bit of a concern for a team who was drafting him, which wound up being the Jackets, but that's a really good pickup there for the Jackets. He has a big body and has some really good offensive upside, so that's a really good pickup there for the Jackets. At 5th overall, the Montreal Canadiens took Ivan Demidov. Not too surprising there. Demidov is a really good Russian. The Canadiens don't make the same mistake they did last year when they passed on Michkov, and they take Demidov at 5th overall, so it's a pretty good pickup there for the Montreal Canadiens to take Demidov. So they wound up taking him. Solid top 6 playmaking winger. Probably going to go over to the KHL for next year or two, but that's a really good pickup there for Montreal. At 6th overall, you got TJ Genla going to Utah with their first ever pick. That's a pretty good pick. I thought they would have gone on for a defenseman with the amount of defensemen that were on the board, but they do go after Genla, solid top 6 winger. I think eventually could be a solid player like that. Sort of followed his dad's footsteps as being a solid NHL level player, so that's a really good pickup there for Utah. And then at 7th overall, we had Carter Yakimchuk go to Ottawa. Positionally, this is probably the best pick for them. I could argue that Perrick is probably a little bit of a better one, but positionally, I think Yakimchuk was really good for the Ottawa Senators. On top of that, you also had Yakimchuk, like we said, solid numbers over, and I think it was a WHL, so really good pickup there for Senators as he's a top 4 right shot defenseman. So interesting stuff there, but the draft so far has been interesting. So you have 1 Celebrini, 2 Levshinov, 3 Senek, 4 goes Lindstrom, 5 goes Demidov, 6 is Iginla, and 7 is Yakimchuk. So we'll have to wait and see on who goes next. But some interesting things so far when it comes to the draft. So interesting so far. Definitely let your guys' thoughts in the chat down below. And let your guys' thoughts in the comments down below on who you think goes next and what do you think so far of all the picks that have been made. It seems like the Seattle Kraken are about to make their pick. They're calling up Matty Beniers. Sounds like he'll be the one to announce the pick. The Seattle Kraken, I expect them to go after the defenseman at this point in time. Could maybe see them go after a forward, but I would think it's very unlikely. I think it's more likely they go after the defenseman like a Buyum or a Dickinson or a Salayev. So interesting to note there, but the Kraken do have the 8th overall pick. And with the 8th overall pick, the Seattle Kraken are selecting... they do select a forward. I'm a little bit surprised here with the amount of solid D-men that are on the board at this point in time, but they don't let him slip. Berkeley Catan goes 8th overall to the Seattle Kraken. I thought with his smaller stature, he could be sort of like Benson from last year or Caulfield from a few years ago, where he winds up at this point, falling a little bit, going to like between 10 and 15, but he winds up being picked 8th overall by the Seattle Kraken. That's a fantastic pickup there for the Kraken. I think that's a really good pickup. Catan is a really good top 6 winger, had some historic numbers playing over in the WHL, putting up I think it was over 100 points. So Catan is a very fantastic player, and I think he should be a really great pickup there for the Seattle Kraken. So Catan goes 8th overall to Seattle. 9th overall, we're going to have the Calgary Flames. So they're going to be an interesting one. I'm not sure which way they go at this point in time. I could see the Flames go after a defenseman, especially after Iginla's gone. I thought they could have gone after Iginla. Some people even thought they could go after Catan, but with all these forwards now gone, I think there's a very likely chance we see them go after a defenseman. Not sure if it'll be Buyum. I had him going there in my... So interesting stuff there, but Catan does go to Seattle. It's 8th overall, so interesting stuff there. So we got some interesting updates here for the Seattle Kraken. So definitely left your guys' thoughts on this, what you think so far on the draft down in the comment section below. Just looking at some stats from Berkeley Catan. Catan has he's a center. He can play on the wing. Hold on a minute here. He's a center, can play on the wing. He's 5'11", 170 pounds, put up 116 points and 54 goals in 68 games this year. It was a fantastic pickup there for the Kraken. Not overly surprised that that happened, and I think he's going to be a fantastic pickup there for the Kraken. So interesting stuff there for Seattle to go after Catan, and they go to a solid top 6 forward. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens next, but this is a fantastic pickup there for the Kraken to get Catan. So it'll be interesting to see which way they go next, but it'll be interesting to see. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with Catan up next, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So interesting stuff so far. Still no rumors at this point in time. It seems like not sure if the Flames will be willing to move down from 9th overall, but interesting stuff so far from the Calgary Flames. Still a lot of really interesting defensemen with guys like Salayev, Dickinson, Buyum, and Perrick available. So I do wonder if the Flames go after a defenseman next. I do wonder if they consider going after another forward and taking like a guy like Cole Yzerman. So it'll be interesting to see exactly which way they go. There has been a recent signing it sounds like, according to Puckpedia, Luke Cunning's going to re-sign with the Sharks on a 1-year, $2.75 million deal. So it sounds like the signing is close and should be announced and not just in future. So interesting stuff there for the Sharks to get Kunin potentially locked up. So that could be an interesting sign there for the Seattle Kraken. But definitely some interesting stuff from over the past couple of days. An interesting draft so far. We have the Flames on the clock now. I'm not sure exactly which way they'll go, but they could be a really good pickup there for the Seattle Kraken. It will be interesting to see. But it'll be interesting to see who the Calgary Flames pick. I could see them go after Parekh, Buyam, Salayev, Dickinson. Wouldn't be overly surprised if they went to forward here and go after Cole Eiserman, but I wouldn't be overly shocked if they did too. So I would be a little bit shocked if they did too. So we'll have to wait and see on what happens there for the Flames. But they have the 9th overall pick, so it'll be interesting to see what they do next. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next at 9th overall for the Calgary Flames. But some interesting pieces on the board still at this point in time. It sounds like it's going to be interesting to note what happens there. So we've seen a lot of forwards. This was supposed to be a defensive-heavy draft, and we've seen a lot of forwards go. I mean, 8 with a forward, 7 was a defenseman, but 6 was a forward, 5 was a forward, 4, 3, 2 were a forward. So far in the first 8 picks, we've had 6 that were forwards and 2 that were defensemen. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if we saw a 3rd defenseman go now, and we saw one like Dickinson, Buyam, Salayev, Parekh, someone like that available. I could see go to them, so it'll be interesting to see. But we do have some interesting stuff from over the past little while, and it'll be interesting to see who goes 9th overall. It sounds like the Calgary Flames pick is going to be in play here. I mean, the non-play, but announced at this point in time, so we'll see who the Calgary Flames go after with the 9th overall pick. I could see, like I said, I expected it to be a defenseman. Wouldn't be overly shocked if it was Eiserman. Could see that be happening, but it'll be interesting to see. And they go after Zane Parekh. So Parekh, who I thought would have gone to the Senators at number 7, winds up going to the Flames at number 9. That's a pretty good pickup there for the Flames. They could use some more defensive prospects. Parekh, I think, is a very fantastic pickup there for Calgary. So he could be a really great pickup there for the Flames. So you have Parekh at 9th overall. That's brilliant in my opinion for the Calgary Flames. He's a right shot defenseman. He's 6 feet, 178 pounds. He's going to be a fantastic player at the NHL level. He put up 33 goals and 96 points in 66 OHL games. I think he could be a very fantastic top 4 defenseman, maybe even top pair defenseman if they do wind up moving on from Rasmus Andersson. I wouldn't be overly surprised if he was the future partner of a guy like Mackenzie Weegar, so that could be a really good pickup there for the Flames. More of an offensive defenseman, definitely has some holes on the defensive end at this point in time, but I think Parekh could be a really good pickup there for the Flames long term. So once again, they miss out on a guy like Iginla, which is a little bit of a bummer given the fact of his connections to Calgary with his father, but they do take Parekh at 24th, at 9th overall, and I think that's a really good pickup there for the Calgary Flames. So the Flames take Parekh at 9th. We'll now go over to 10th. This is another interesting pick. There was some talk about the 10th overall pick being on the block, especially for a goalie before they acquired Jacob Markstrom. So I do wonder if the Devils consider also continuing to move picks. I could see a move down a little bit, maybe get a little bit of a more draft capital or a decent pick or a player or something like that. So I'm not exactly sure what the Devils do here. I could see two guys who I think go here at 10th overall with who's on the board right now. One is Dickinson and 2 is Eiserman. I predicted Eiserman a couple of times now to go to New Jersey. I think he'll be a fantastic fit there, but I've also seen a lot of people say Dickinson maybe to New Jersey. He's a really good defenseman. They could use another top 4 defenseman. He's got some size to him. He's got some great skating abilities. Could put up some offensive numbers that are really, really good. So I could see Dickinson go here. I could see Eiserman go here. If it's anyone other than those two, I'd be a little bit shocked. But it'll be interesting to see who goes to 10th overall to the New Jersey Devils. So interesting stuff there. It'll be interesting to see who goes to number 10. Interesting to note there. I do wonder if we see some sort of a trade. I do wonder if we see some sort of a trade in the not just in future. So like we said, Flames get Parekh, who's a really good defenseman. Interesting to note for that. So it'll be interesting to see who else goes here. So far, I'll give you a quick rundown of what happened so far. At first overall, we saw the San Jose Sharks take Macklin Celebrini. At second overall, we saw the Blackhawks take Levshinov. Third overall, surprise pick here, Beckett Senek goes to the Anaheim Ducks. At fourth overall, we saw the Jackets take Lindstrom. At 5 overall, we saw the Montreal Canadiens take Demidov. At 6 overall, we saw the Utah franchise take Iginla. 7th overall, Yakimchuk to Ottawa. 8th overall, Catan to Seattle. And 9th overall, Perek to Calgary. So some pretty interesting picks. So far, the first 2 went exactly like I thought they would go, and then the other 9 so far have not. I expected Seneke to go way lower than that. I expected Demidov and Lindstrom to flip-flop. I expected Demidov to go 4th and Lindstrom 5th, and instead it was the opposite. I expected Iginla to go not 8th. He went 6th. I expected Yakimchuk, I think it was to go 12th to Philadelphia or 11th to Buffalo or something like that. I think it might have been 11th to Buffalo. He winds up going 7th. I expected Perek going 7th. He goes 9th. And I expected Catan to go lower. I expected him to go 14 to San Jose, back when San Jose had the 14th overall pick, and he instead goes to the Seattle Kraken at 8th overall. So interesting stuff there, but we do have some interesting notes. I definitely love to hear your thoughts on this down in the chat below. If you guys are watching right now, what do you think about these picks so far? Are you surprised by anything? And what do you think will happen over the next few picks? Definitely love to hear your thoughts on that. We're so far 9 picks in. The 10th pick is about to be announced, so we'll have to wait and see on what happens with the New Jersey Devils. But that could be a really good pickup there for the Devils, depending on what they go after. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not exactly sure which way they go. Like I said, I expect Yzerman or Dickinson. I could see maybe some other people go after someone, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But it's going to be interesting to note there. So going to be interesting to see who goes to New Jersey. Still hearing some rumors about Luke Cunnin signing a 1-year deal in San Jose to remain there, so that could be a really good pickup there for the Sharks to get Cunnin. It's something the Devils are about to announce their pick, so interesting stuff there to see who winds up going at number 10 overall to New Jersey. Like I said, I'm expecting Yzerman or Dickinson. Could be wrong here, but the pick is in, so they're not moving this pick, so they keep it. Like I said, I do wonder if it's Yzerman. I do wonder if it's Dickinson, so it'll be interesting to see exactly who they go here. Wouldn't be overly surprised if they went after Slayev or Buyum, given the fact that those two are also really good defensemen, but my pick here is probably either Dickinson or Yzerman, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens here for New Jersey. Next up, we have the San Jose Sharks via the Buffalo Sabres. It's going to be interesting to see who they take at 11th overall. You can see right here, I think, yeah, up here will be 11th overall for the San Jose Sharks, so we'll have to wait and see exactly who they go after. It'll be interesting to see who they go after this, but we are having the New Jersey Devils pick on the clock right now. They're just about to announce it. Seems like it's going to be an interesting one. Do wonder who they go after, and the pick is in, and they go after, hold on, the Devils take with the 10th overall pick, Anton Salayev. So Salayev does go to 10th overall to the New Jersey Devils. That's a really good pickup there for the Devils. They could use a solid top 4 big body defenseman like a Salayev. So that's a really good pickup there in my opinion for the New Jersey Devils. They get Salayev, who's really good, who's a solid top 4 defenseman. I think eventually could be a really good solid pickup there for the New Jersey Devils. So some interesting stuff there as they take Salayev at number, so they take Salayev at number 10th overall. So it's a pretty good pickup there for the Devils to take Salayev. So I do wonder who goes next. Dickinson's still on the board. Yzerman's still on the board. There was a lot of talk after the Sharks traded up to 11th yesterday that they were going to try and target Cole Yzerman to keep Yzerman and Celebrini, who do have connections, together. So I do wonder if the Sharks go after Yzerman with the 11th overall pick. So it'll be interesting to see. 12th overall, you have the Flyers. You gotta think they'll probably take one of the defensemen that's available, whether that be Buyum or Dickinson. At 13th overall, you have the Minnesota Wild. Wouldn't be surprised if they went after a forward instead of a defenseman. Could even see one of those top 4 defensemen still be available for Buffalo when they take the 14th overall pick. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But Salayev, who's 6'7", he's a monster of a blue liner. Let's just double check on his stats. Hold on. Let me get here. Salayev is a left shot defenseman, 6'7", 211 pounds, coming off a season in the KHL where he had 3 goals and 11 points in 63 games. He looked fantastic in the KHL. He looked pretty good. So I think that's a pretty good pickup there for the New Jersey Devils. I think Salayev is a fantastic player. So they're going to commercial right now. So I'm not going to have the 11th overall pick for another couple minutes, but some interesting stuff there. So first overall, Celebrini. Second overall, Levshunov. Third overall, Senek. Fourth overall, Lindstrom. Fifth overall, Demidov. Sixth overall, Iginla. Seventh overall, Yakimchuk. Eighth overall goes to Catan. Ninth overall, the Flames take Perek, and 10th overall, the Devils take Salayev. So interesting stuff there, and I'll be interested to see what happens next. But it's definitely going to be some interesting happenings over the next little while. So definitely going to be interesting to see who ends up going where. I definitely do expect some potentially more trades to happen. Maybe, hopefully, we might see some more trades tomorrow. I do still hope to do a live draft video tomorrow. Not exactly sure if I will or not, but I'll try to. So it'll be interesting to see. I do wonder if the Sharks wind up going after the defenseman or wind up going after Yzerman. There was some talk earlier about them going after Yzerman, but they also could use another tall defensive prospect because they don't really have a whole bunch in their prospect pool. So I could see him go after a defenseman, could see him go after a guy like Yzerman. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but the Sharks definitely are going to be trying to add some more pieces. So it'll be interesting to note there, but definitely some interesting stuff from over the past couple of days, from over the past hour. We're now over an hour into our draft video, so interesting to note there, but it's going to be interesting to see how this rest of this draft shakes out. It hasn't been all to what I expected it to be, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, who I had going in the top 10, Dickinson's fallen out of the top 10. I had him going in the top 10. I also had you had 5th overall, 6th overall, 7th overall, 8th overall, 9th overall. I didn't have Catan going in the top 10. I didn't have didn't have Seneki go in the top 10. I didn't have Yakimchuk go in the top 10, didn't have Catan go in the top 10. So I didn't have a lot of these guys going in the top 10 who wound up going in the top 10. And I also had guys like Dickinson fall out of the top 10, Bouillam's falling out of the top 10, Yzerman's falling out of the top 10. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But so interesting note there. But the Sharks will be able to get Celebrini at 1st overall, and Levshunov did go to second to the Chicago Blackhawks, but everything else at this point in time was not to what I expected. So we have a lot of interesting still picks to be had. 11th overall is now the one that's on the block. So interesting stuff there. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up getting acquired. Sharks, I'm not exactly sure if they go after a defenseman or Yzerman. Not exactly sure. This has actually been quite a forward-heavy draft, even though a lot of people are expecting them to have a defensive-heavy draft. So I expected some defensemen to go in the next couple of picks, but still, the top 10 was littered with forwards. So interesting to note there, 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, even though a lot of people were expecting a top-heavy draft. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there. So it'll be interesting to see who the Sharks have at 10th overall. Going over to, who the Sharks have 11th overall. The Sharks have made their selection. At 11th overall, they take, hold on, the San Jose Sharks are selecting Sam Dickinson. Okay, so it's not too much of a surprise there. Dickinson's a really solid player. I thought he could go to 3rd overall to the Ducks. That's why I'm going in my mock draft. He drops to 11th. But still, that's a really good pickup there for the Sharks. They could use some more defensive help. Besides maybe a guy like Muka Hamadulin and a couple of other young guys. They don't really have a whole bunch of really stud prospects on the defensive end in their system. So they go after Dickinson. That's a very fantastic pickup there for the Sharks. And they don't wind up moving that pick. So we now have the Philadelphia Flyers at 12th overall. They wind up not being able to trade up and into the first top 10. So I do wonder if they go after a guy like Zeev Bouillam. I think that's a very likely possibility for the Philadelphia Flyers. With him still being available, I think they could definitely use some more defensive help. Maybe they go after a forward, but I wouldn't be always surprised if they go after Bouillam. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with the Sharks, but that's an interesting pickup there for the Sharks, taking Dickinson. So it will be really interesting to find out exactly who winds up going where. But that's going to be an interesting pickup there for the Sharks to get Dickinson. So interesting to note. Hold on a minute here. Let's see some things. So we do have some things we are currently looking at right now, but interesting to note here so far that we've had some interesting things. Love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the chat on what you think. Interesting to note so far at this point about who goes where. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who gets selected at which point. So I do think we'll see the Flyers go on a defensive selection. Wouldn't be overly surprised if Bouillon went there. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. But I do expect Bouillon to be taken at 12th overall, if I'm correct. Yes, it's 12th overall. So the Flyers are taking 12th overall. Not exactly sure who they go after. I'm guessing it's Bouillon. I could see him go after Yzerman. I'm not exactly sure who else they could go after. Could they go after a guy like Brandt Nygaard? Not exactly sure who, but that could be a really good pickup there for them. So interesting to note there. Not exactly sure who else winds up taking someone. So the Sharks are taking 2 picks. They get Dickinson and Celebrini. This is going to expedite their prospects. Their rebuild really good. They now have a solid top defensive prospect, and Celebrini and Smith are going to be eventually a 1-2 punch to be feared in San Jose. So I don't think they're going to be a playoff team next year. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team 2 to 3 years down the road. But I do expect them to eventually be a solid defensive team. In probably 3 or 4 years, I think they could be a really good team. So interesting stuff there. Let's just go over some of my recent stuff that I posted on my Twitter, on my blog. Just really quickly here. Here's who I had on my top 30 trade bait list as of, I think it was a week and a half ago, maybe a week ago. So just to really recap here, remember some of these guys have been moved on already. You have Martin Necas first overall. I do wonder if he still gets moved at some point. There were a lot of teams who had some interest in him. So I do wonder if there's a team out there who still moves a first round pick to try and get him. There was also Jacob Markstrom, who has been moved. He was second on my draft board. Ehlers was third overall. The Jets, I think, could still move him, try and get back in the first round. So I do wonder if we could see an Ehlers trade later today. You have Mitch Marner. Not exactly sure if Marner will get traded today. There's been a lot of talk about maybe him going to Vegas after July 1st when the signing bonus is paid. So it will be interesting to see, but I don't expect Marner to get dealt, but maybe we do see something like that. You have Saros. He recently just signed an extension, so he's off the board. You have Zegras, who's 6th overall. He's a really good player there for the Anaheim Ducks. Could see him be acquired. There was a lot of talk about the Flyers maybe having some interest in a guy like Trevor Zegras. Do they move the 12th overall pick for him? Maybe that's a possibility. We'll have to wait and see. Chychrun, 7th overall. Do wonder if the Senators try and move him at some point today, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Allmark has been moved on. He was 8th overall. The 10th and 11th overall pick were on the board. The 11th overall pick to get moved. Buffalo moved 3 spots down. I'm not exactly the 10th overall pick did not get moved, so those picks are now off the board. You have Patrick Laine at 10th overall. I do wonder if someone tries to take a run at Laine and acquire him today. It'll be interesting to see if that does happen. 11th overall is Gensel signing rates. There's still some talk about Carolina trying to extend him, so I don't think he'll be moved. You have Gibson at 12th overall. Don't think he'll take a first round pick, but could he be moved today? You have Farabee, who was 13th on my board. Wallstrom, who was 14th on my board. You have Buchnevich, who was 15th. Ronick, who was 16th, has indeed signed, so he's gone. You have Harris, who was 17th. You have Utah's draft picks with 18th. I wasn't expecting them to move the 6th overall pick, but there was a lot of talk that they could move like a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, so we'll have to wait and see on what happens there. On top of that, you have Kaliev, who was 19th in my pick, who was 19th on my board. I could see him be moved. You have Theodore, who was 20th. Could see him be moved. You have Ferraro, who was 21st. You have Mangiapane, who did get moved, who was 22nd, so I don't expect... He's got a new home now. You have Lawton, who was 23rd. You have Merzlikins, who was 24th on my board. Liljegren, who was 25th. Gustafsson, who was 26th, Smith, who was 27th, 28th for Murphy, 29th for Ekblad, and 30th was Pedersen. So lots of interesting potential trade options there, in my opinion. Potential options. I hope to have a new trade bait board out before the start of free agency, so definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that. it sounds like they could have a trade incoming for the Philadelphia Flyers. It sounds like they could be talking about something here. That would be huge. We could finally have a draft day trade. I mean, interesting to note there, but it sounds like we might have a trade to announce. The Flyers GM is on the phone, so we could be getting a trade here. This could be a fantastic, finally, one of these live videos I've finally done will be having a live trade, so that could be really good. I'd love to see who the Flyers wind up moving and who they wind up taking, so it'll be interesting to see who they wind up nabbing, but it does seem like we might have a trade here for Philadelphia. There was a lot of talk that we're going to try and move up in the draft. They never did, so it seems that now that they might be moving down the draft, they might be trading it completely. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what they do. They'd have the 12th overall pick. Some of the teams who are right below them who might be trying to trade up. 13th overall is Minnesota. 14th overall is Buffalo. 15th overall is the Detroit Red Wings. 16th overall is St. Louis. 17th overall is the Capitals. 18th overall is the 18th overall is the 18th overall is the Blackhawks. 19th is the Knights. 20th is the Islanders. Could any of those 18th be moving up, or is this a pick for a player trade? Could the Flyers be trying to make a mega blockbuster deal here to try and improve their team for the future? Definitely, it's interesting to note. It's interesting to see who winds up being included in this deal, but it does sound like there's a major trade here involving the Philadelphia Flyers. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens here, but the Flyers seem like they're going about to make a move. Not exactly sure who they'll try and target. Not exactly sure if they're trading down or if they're trading the pick entirely, but that's not like they are trying to make a trade. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens here, but it does sound like we will be getting a trade here for the Philadelphia Flyers. And it does sound like we will be picking. It'll be interesting to see who's picking. Just recap here quickly. We'll wait for the trade to be announced. First overall, Celebrini went to San Jose. Second overall, Levchinov to Chicago. Third overall, Senik to Anaheim. Fourth overall, Lindstrom to Columbus. Fifth overall, Demidov to Montreal. Sixth overall, we had sixth overall, we had again Lego to Utah. Seventh overall, we had Yakimchuk to Ottawa. Eighth overall, we had the Kraken take Catan. Ninth overall, we had Perek go to. Ninth overall, we had Perek go to Calgary. 10th overall, Jersey got Salayev. And 11th overall, we saw the San Jose Sharks via the Buffalo Sabres take Jason Dickinson. So it'll be interesting to note there. It seems like the trade is about to be announced, so it'll be a big trade. It sounds like it might be with the St. Louis Blues, or maybe not. Maybe the Minnesota Wild, it sounds like. It sounds like the Wild are trading up one spot. So there is a trade alert. It's not a big one, but the trade is as follows. The Minnesota Wild have acquired the 12th overall pick from the Flyers in exchange for a 13th overall pick and the 2025 third rounder. So the Wild are able to, so the Flyers get a third rounder in next year's draft. It's a really decent trade, in my opinion, for the Flyers to get a third rounder in next year's draft, move down only one spot, and in order to move up one spot, sounds like the Wild might be trying to go after a guy like Bouillon here. I wouldn't be overly surprised, or Yzerman. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they try to target one of these two guys. So Minnesota moves up one spot, and the Flyers are able to get a third round pick in next year's draft, so it's a really good move there for both sides. Hopefully the first of a couple of trades we'll see today, so interesting there, but that's a massive deal for the Wild to move up one spot, and we will see exactly what happens for these two teams. The Flyers only moving down one spot, so they probably know that they are already going to have who they want at 13th overall, so they'd be willing to move down, get the extra draft pick. Meanwhile, for the Minnesota Wild, it's a pretty good pickup there for them. So interesting stuff there. But we've got some interesting options here for the Minnesota Wild. Could see him go after Bouillon. Could see him go after a guy like maybe the Yzerman. So it'll be interesting to see exactly which way they go. But it'll be interesting to see which way they wind up going. Just refreshing my Twitter feed right now. Hold on. Just give me a minute. So the Minnesota Wild are now on the clock. We'll see who they select. My guess is it's got to be Bouillon or Yzerman if they're trading up for him. So I do wonder if the Wild make a move of that sorts. So they could definitely use they could definitely use another guy like that. They have a really good prospect pool with a lot of really good young guys. So I wouldn't be overly surprised that they tried to improve that forward group. Also wouldn't be overly surprised that they tried to add a defenseman. So it'll be interesting to see exactly which way they go. But I'm expecting Bouillon or Eiserman to be one of the picks here. So it'll be interesting to see. After 12th overall, we have the 13th overall, which will be Philadelphia. I'm sure they know who they're taking at this point in time. So I don't expect that pick to take too long. But it sounds like the Minnesota Wild will be going to the draft stage in the not distant future, so it'll be interesting to see who they take. It'll be really interesting to see who ends up going there. So interesting stuff so far. We're an hour and 20 minutes into our draft video so far. Interesting stuff so far has happened. At 12th overall, we have the Minnesota Wild. It'll be interesting to see who they wind up taking. They're going to the draft floor at this point in time. So they're about to announce their pick. That could be really good. Sorry guys, my voice is a little bit cracking at this point in time, but the Wild are about to pick make their pick. I do wonder what the Wild will be doing over the next couple of days. They don't have too many UFAs. I do wonder if they consider moving a guy like Philip Gustafsson, who is one of their higher cap hits, and I think they could try and move him to try and get some cap space to go after some free agents. I won't be overly surprised if they try to go after a top 9 forward or a top 4 defenseman, but I do think they'll try and do some things in this year, but this week. But I won't be overly surprised that the Wild were relatively quiet, but they are making a pick here, and the Minnesota Wild with the 12th overall pick via the Philadelphia Flyers, which is required, take Yves Bouillon. So they stopped Bouillon's fall. They figured out that he was falling pretty high, pretty far. They wind up taking him at 12th overall, found a need for him. So that's another really good prospect. Eventually, Bouillon, I think, could really fit in well with a guy like... Eventually, I think Bouillon could fit in really well with a guy like Faber and Spurgeon and Brodin on that defensive group. He's a left-shot defenseman, 6 feet, 183 pounds, coming off a season where he had 11 goals and 50 points in 42 games in the NCAA. He looked fantastic. So, that was a really good pickup there for the Wild. Bouillon falls a lot. I was expecting him to go 9th. He goes a little bit lower in 12th, but that's a pretty good pickup there for the Minnesota Wild to get Bouillon, and I think he's going to be a fantastic pickup there for the Minnesota Wild. So it's a pretty good pickup there to get Bouillon at 12th overall. They do have to trade up for him. It is a decent trade in my opinion, but it's a pretty good pickup there for the Wild to get Bouillon. So interesting stuff there. Interesting so far to see all these things. But we probably will have a couple more trades over the next little while. Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below, and what you think of all this so far. At this point in time, the draft picks have gone like this. Let me just double check at this point in time. So at first overall, he had Celebrini go to San Jose. Second overall was Levshinov to Chicago. Third overall, Senek to Anaheim. Fourth overall, Lindstrom to Columbus. Fifth overall, Demidov to Montreal. Sixth overall, Iginla to Utah. Seventh overall, Yakimchuk to Ottawa. Eighth overall, Catan to Seattle. Ninth overall, Perek to Calgary. 10th overall, Salayev to Jersey. 11th overall, Dickinson to San Jose. And 12th overall, Bouillon to Minnesota. So some interesting stuff there. So at 13th overall, we have the Philadelphia Flyers. They're about to be on the clock in a couple of minutes. At 14th overall, we have the Buffalo Sabres. They traded down a couple of spots yesterday. I wonder what they do. Then at 15th overall, we'll have the Detroit Red Wings. At 16th overall, we'll have the St. Louis Blues. 17th will be the Washington Capitals. 18th will be the Hawks via the New York Islanders. 19th will be the Knights that hosted the draft. 20th overall will be the New York Islanders via the Tampa Bay Lightning. 21st overall will be the Montreal Canadiens via the LA Kings. 22nd overall, the Predators. 23rd overall, the Leafs. 24th overall, the Avalanche. 25th overall, the Bruins via the Bruins, Senators, and Bruins, Red Wings, and Senators. 26th, the Canadian Kings via the Canadians and the Habs. 27th will be the Canes. 28th will be the Flames via the Canucks. 29th, Stars. 30th, Rangers. 31st, Ducks via the Oilers. And 32nd, Flyers via the Florida Panthers. So some interesting stuff over the past couple of days. We should be moving a little bit quicker tomorrow with our draft live video tomorrow. I'm only probably going to be staying around for the first 2, 3 for the first 2 or 3 rounds. I'm probably not going to be staying past the 4th round, so I will be with you guys for a little bit, and if we see some trades, I'll definitely be able to announce them, but I'll definitely be able to do another draft live video tomorrow. Hopefully the stream quality is a little bit better tomorrow than it is right now. I know it's a little bit buffery at some points, but just stay tuned with us and try and get through that as we try and work through our Wi-Fi difficulties to give you this live video. So definitely don't forget to keep stay tuned, as we're going to have some interesting videos from over the next little while. Like I said, I'm doing a live draft video tomorrow. At some point tomorrow, probably in the afternoon, or maybe sometime Sunday morning, I'll probably do a first round recap of what happened in the first round. So just to do a quick recap to see what happened at that point in time. So I'll do that at some point too. On top of that, we'll probably continue to do some more videos regarding trades, rumors, and stuff like that over the next couple of days. And once again, I'll do another live video early on Monday morning. Probably my guess will be somewhere around 9:30, maybe 10. Not exactly sure exactly what time I'll be doing that live video on Monday, but we will be doing another live video on Monday discussing some of the things that happen surrounding the free agent market. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But so far, it's been really good today. We've got some interesting trades. We got a trade to discuss. Last year we had no trades, even pick for pick swaps. So even though it's only pick for pick swap, Wild get 12th overall, Flyers get 13th overall in the 3rd round pick in next year's draft, at least it's a trade and we got one this year. So I expect there to be some more trades. I do wonder if we could see a guy like Zegers be moved, Ehlers be moved, Natchez be moved. I do wonder about that, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but I do wonder what happens now. Flyers are on the clock. My guess would be they know who they're taking. I wouldn't be surprised if they took Cole Yzerman, try and round out that top 4 with guys like Michkov, or top 6 on the forward group with guys like Michkov coming in the not too distant future. Could they go take a Brandstad Nygaard or something like that? I do wonder who they try and go after at this point. If you look at the Buffalo Sabres, I do wonder what they go at 14th overall. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they move back or traded that pick, given the fact that they need some more help right now. But on top of that, I wouldn't be overly surprised if they picked that they maybe go after Yzerman if he's still on the board at that point in time, or if they go after a defenseman. They've got some more of the lower end defensemen right now, so guys like Juracek, Hudson. Not exactly sure who they go after, but I could definitely see someone of the defensive core go to Buffalo. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who goes where, but I definitely expect the Sabres to be interesting pick to watch out for, but we do have the Flyers about to be picked here. I wouldn't be overly surprised if this was Yzerman. I mean, we saw them go a little bit off the board last time with taking Michkov, not off the board, but taking a player who had some concerns. Yzerman definitely has some concerns. He's a really good shot, but he does have some defensive breakdowns at points, so I wouldn't be overly surprised if he was the pick. Brandstad Nygaard could be the pick in my opinion. Liam Greentree, if they wanted a forward, could also be a really good pick. Could see him go after the defenseman for Philadelphia still. Wonder if they go after a guy like Juracek, Hudson. I think Kivi Haru is still a little bit high for this pick, but I could see him go after him too. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who they go after, but definitely there's some interesting pieces here. Let's just quickly look at some of the prospects that are still here. Let's see. Yeah, so you got guys like Yzerman still available. You've got a guy like Hellenius. Hellenius could be a really good pick there. I think I actually picked Hellenius to go to Philadelphia, if I'm correct. So he could be a pick there. You have Greentree. You have Brandstad Nygaard. You have Juracek, Hage, Conley, Solberg, Chernyshov. So there's a couple of really decent picks here at number 13th overall for Philadelphia Flyers. And I do wonder what they go. They will be picking here, so they're not trading again, but they will be picking 13th overall. So it'll be interesting to see who they go here. Flyers, I expect to be a little bit of a busy team this year over the next couple of week and a half. I think they're going to be busy. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they try to add some more veterans to this group, but this team is still in the midst of a rebuild. They had a really good season this year, but I don't expect that success to continue into next year. So I wouldn't be overly surprised if we saw them maybe move a couple more pieces. We saw Atkinson be bought out earlier today, so I wouldn't be overly surprised if we saw some more veterans be moved. I could see Farabee or Frost be moved, even though they're not veterans. I could see them definitely be moved over the next couple of days. I could see them consider moving a guy like maybe Travis Konechny, but I think that would be really unlikely. So it'll be interesting to see, but it'll be interesting to see exactly who goes where. But they are picking right now. The Philadelphia Flyers do have the 13th overall pick, and I'm not exactly sure who at this point they are selecting, but we will find out in the next couple of minutes. So it'll be interesting to see who the Flyers go after. I do wonder if they try and like I said, take one of the defensemen that's still available, like Juracek or Hudson, or if they go after a forward, I still think it's probably Yzerman, but I might be wrong, so we'll have to wait and see exactly who they go after. 13th overall, the Flyers take, with the 13th overall pick, which they got from the Minnesota Wild just a couple minutes ago. A little bit of a surprise here. They take forward Jet Luchenko. Luchenko was someone I don't have on my board going in the top 15. Luchenko, that's a really good pickup there for the Flyers. Luchenko's a really good prospect. It looks like eventually he could be a solid prospect there for the Philadelphia Flyers. He's another solid forward prospect. I think eventually could work on a solid top 6 role as a center. I have him going at 29 overall to Dallas. So in my opinion, this is a little bit of a surprise. Luchenko is a really good player. 5'11", 185 pounds. So he's a little bit on the smaller side, but he's a really good player. Coming off a season in the OHL where he had 20 goals and 74 points in 68 games. So it was over a point per game. Looks like a really good player. I think he could be a really good pickup there for the Philadelphia Flyers. If they do wind up moving a guy like Farabee in a year or two's time, he could be a really solid second, third line center there for the Flyers. So that's a really good pickup there, or Frost Cement. Then that could be a really good pickup there for the Flyers. So it's probably still going to need a year or two, maybe even 3 years in the OHL, and still going to need some time developing, but that could be a really good pickup there for the Philadelphia Flyers. So Philadelphia moves down one spot, allows Minnesota to take Buyam, gets a third-round pick in return, and then takes Jet Luchenko, who in my opinion is a little bit of a surprise, but still, that's a pretty good pickup there for the Flyers. So 14th overall, we have the Buffalo Sabres. They got this pick via the Pittsburgh Penguins and the San Jose Sharks. Penguins originally had 14th overall. They moved that pick last year, just past the free agency, to the San Jose Sharks in order to get themselves Erik Karlsson. And then on top of that, they moved the Sharks moved that pick just yesterday to Buffalo to get 11th overall, which they used to take Dickinson today. So I'm not exactly sure who Buffalo will go after. I could see them go after Yzerman. That could be a really good fit there, but they already have so many really good forward prospects. I wouldn't be overly surprised if they went after a guy like a guy on the defensive end like a Hudson or a Juracek. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who they go after, but I definitely expect the Sabres to have an interesting pick. I also wouldn't be surprised if they went to trade that pick to try and go after a guy like Necas, Ehlers, or Zegras. I wouldn't be overly surprised about that. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens with the Buffalo Sabres, but that could be a really good pickup there for the Sabres to try and improve their team. So it'll be interesting to see, but Philly gets a really good player here in Luchenko, solid top 6 center, a bit on the smaller side, but looks like it could be a really good playmaker, and I think could be eventually maybe even a solid top line center. Not exactly sure if he'll be 1 or 2, but he could even be a guy who plays with a guy like Matvei Michkov. So that's a really good pickup there for the Flyers at number 13 overall. So interesting stuff there. So you got Buyam off the board at 12. You have Luchenko at 13. So it'll be interesting to see who they go after at 14 with Buffalo. After the Sabres, you got 15 and 16, which are the other 2 teams who missed the playoffs. You have the Detroit Red Wings, and you have the St. Louis Blues, so it'll be interesting to see what they go after. So for Buffalo, this is going to be an interesting pick. I wouldn't be overly shocked if we saw them trade down or trade the pick to try and go after a guy like Zegras, Ehlers, Necas, or try and just trade down again. I also wouldn't be overly surprised if they kept this pick and went after a guy like Cole Yzerman or a guy like Juracek or Hudson. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who they go after, but Buffalo is going to be an interesting pickup there for but Buffalo's going to be interesting for this where they go at this point in time. For the offseason, I think this is going to be a busy offseason for the Sabres. I think they really need to try and improve this team. I wouldn't be over surprised if they went after a backup goaltender, try and go after someone who can work with Luukkonen, who can try and maybe be a really good fit there for Luukkonen at behind him. I'm not sure if Levi is ready for the NHL level at this point in time. You also have the I could see him go after a defenseman, maybe. We'll have to wait and see, but I could definitely see him go after someone on the defensive side, but I think there's a really lucky chance to go after a forward, which is why I'm bringing up guys like Zegras, Ehlers, Necas, amongst others. So I do wonder if they do move this pick for a forward. If not, I definitely expect them to be busy in the offseason over the next couple of days, trying to add some forward help. Wouldn't be overly surprised if they move next year's first-round pick for a forward. Wouldn't be overly surprised if they move some of their young prospects, like a Rosen or a Ostlund for a forward prospect, so for forward players. So we'll have to wait and see on what happens with Buffalo, but this is going to be an interesting offseason for the Sabres. Try and get back to the playoffs, one of my favorite teams. So I'd like to see the Sabres do well here, make a really good selection, or try and trade this pick to try and improve their forward group. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Buffalo Sabres, but it's going to be interesting to see. Their pick is still on the clock right now, so we do have a couple minutes to kill at this point in time. It'll be interesting to see. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but definitely going to be interesting to see who ends up going where. So we have 14th overall, the Buffalo Sabres. At 15th overall is the Detroit Red Wings. 16th, we have the St. Louis Blues, and then we go over to the teams who made the playoffs. 17th is Washington, 18th is Chicago via the New York Islanders, 19th is Vegas, 20th is the Islanders via the Hawks and the Bolts. So we got a couple of interesting picks coming up there. We're almost halfway through the draft. We have so far a really good thing so far, so it's been really good. So some interesting pickups so far. So we got some interesting things that are going to be happening over the next little while. I expect them to be interesting nonetheless. The pick is in for Buffalo Sabres, so they do not trade it, so they are picking someone. So it'll be interesting to see exactly who they go after. I'm guessing Yzerman or a defenseman like a Juracek or a Hudson. That would be my guess. Buffalo is one of my favorite teams, so I got to really see what they do here. I definitely expect them to have a busy next couple of days trying to improve this team, but they will be picking. It seems like Lindy Ruff might be announcing this pick, so it'll be interesting to see who the Buffalo Sabres go after. At one point, I looked at the Sabres might have a chance at a defenseman like a Bouillon or a Dickinson, who I think they would have snatched up in a heartbeat, but with Dickinson going to San Jose and Bouillon going to Minnesota, that's not a possibility, so I do wonder who they go here at number 14, and seems that they just made their pick, and the Buffalo Sabres will take, with the 14th overall pick, Consta Helenius. So Helenius does go to the Buffalo Sabres. I'm not overly surprised here. Helenius does drop a couple of spots. He could be a really good prospect there for the Sabres, so he adds to a solid prospect pool that already has guys like Rosen, Oslin, Kulig, and stuff like that. So their forward prospect pool is extremely talented right now. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Sabres. I thought they might have gone for Yzerman, who's still falling. I do wonder if they go after someone else, so it'll be interesting to see, but I do wonder who they go after next. 15th overall, we have Greentree with the Detroit Red Wings. 15th overall, we have the Detroit Red Wings. In my mock draft, I had them going after Liam Greentree, but with them having a potentiality here of Steve Yzerman going after and selecting Cole Yzerman, I think that could be a really good pickup there for the Detroit Red Wings. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who the Red Wings draft, but for the Buffalo Sabres, this is a really good pickup there. It's not overly surprising. I think I was expecting Helenius to go somewhere between 10 and 15, so to see him go 14th overall is not overly surprising. He's a winger, so he's someone who is very versatile. He can also play center position if need be. He's 5'11", 180 pounds. A really good pickup there for the Sabres, coming off a season over in Liga where he had 14 goals and 36 points in 51 games, nearly a point per game at Liga, so over a half a point per game. So it looked pretty good, and I think this could be a really good pickup there for the Buffalo Sabres, taking Helenius at 14th overall. So interesting stuff there. On top of that, we do have a couple of more interesting ones that are going to be happening over the next little while. I do wonder what happens next, but the Sabres do take Helenius 14th overall. 15th overall, we'll have the Detroit Red Wings, so it'll be interesting to see who the Red Wings take at 15th overall. But some interesting stuff there. So we do have a couple of really interesting picks so far. Some surprises. Started with Senek at 3rd overall. A little bit of a surprise to see again go 6th overall. Also a tiny bit of a surprise to see Catan go 8th overall. I thought I would have dropped a little bit. We also saw the Flyers take Luchenko, which was a little bit of a surprise too. So we've had a couple of surprises, a little bit, not too much. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who goes next. But 15th overall, the Detroit Red Wings. That's what I predicted to be Liam Greentree. So we'll have to wait and see if that's correct or not. But it will be interesting to see who goes where for the rest of the draft. So it will be interesting to see. Just responding to some of the chats in the draft. No, I did not see Senek going to Anaheim. That was a complete another shock to me. I thought that the Ducks would have gone in a different direction, but Senek to Anaheim could be a really good pick. He's a solid winger. I think they could definitely use some more wingers, so to see him go there is interesting. And Cole Yzerman is not Steve Yzerman's kid, definitely spelled differently. So no, they're not related in any sort of way, but some interesting stuff there for Detroit here could have Yzerman take Yzerman. So it'll be interesting to see that happen, but I do wonder if the Detroit Red Wings go for maybe a different type of forward. Not sure if they'll go after Yzerman. I could see him, like I said in my predictions, go after Greentree. Could see him go after maybe some other guys. So I do wonder if they could go after a guy like Michael Branson-Nygaard. He could be a really good fit there. We know that the Red Wings like to take more European players, so that could be a really good pick there for the Detroit Red Wings. So that's fantastic stuff there for Detroit. I could see that be really interesting there. On top of that, we're going to be interesting to see who else everyone goes with. I still can't believe Cole Yzerman's on the board. I thought he might have dropped a little bit. Eventually, at the beginning of the season, he was like number 2 on everyone's draft boards, and now he's dropped down to 15 at the least, if not lower. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there for them. For Detroit, I expect them to have a busy next couple of days. They got to try and figure out all their free agents. They have Perron, they have Kane, they have a couple of other guys. They're trying to get Gostisbehere signed. There's a lot of talk that they could go after a guy like Steven Stamkos or Jake Gensel. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who they try and target. But there's some talk really over the past little while that they could be trying to go after a big-time free agent. Could try to keep a guy like Gostisbehere, try and go after the defenseman. So Detroit's going to be a really busy team here to try and keep their momentum going from last year. So we're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens there. But that's going to be an interesting thing there for Detroit to see who goes where in this draft pick. But it's also going to be interesting to see how the next couple of days go and see if they do make some moves. I don't think I had any of their players on the trade board. I might have some of them on my new trade board when I do post it, but it's going to be interesting in a couple of days for the Detroit Red Wings to see if they can try and improve this team even more to get better, because they were right on the cusp this year of the playoffs, just missed out. So if they can improve a little bit more, they'll be in a very good position to potentially make the playoffs next year. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there for the Detroit Red Wings, but I think it's going to be interesting to figure out who goes where. So interesting to note there. So Hellenius goes 14th overall to Buffalo. That's a really good pickup there for the Sabres to get. That's a really good pickup there for the Sabres to get a guy like Hellenius. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Sabres. I do wonder if they try and make some more moves later on in the day, or potentially over the next couple of days. So we'll have to wait and see on that. The Red Wings are going to the draft podium, so they're not trading this pick. So we'll have to wait and see who winds up going where. Who ends up being picked up by this Detroit Red Wings team. Like I said, I could see Yzerman, I could see Greentree. Branson-Nygaard could be a really good pickup there for the Detroit Red Wings. Could see him go after the defenseman like a Juracek or a Hudson. So not exactly sure which way they go, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if they do wind up doing some things here. So it'll be interesting to see where they wind up going with this. The Detroit Red Wings are just about to announce their pick. It seems like they could be a really good pickup there for the Detroit, depending on what happens. So it could be really interesting. So I do wonder what the Detroit Red Wings will be picking here. Will they be picking a forward, defenseman? It'll be interesting to see. Are they going after a guy like a Juracek or Hudson, who have brothers in the NHL right now, with Adam Juracek's brother David on Columbus, Cole Hudson's brother Lane in Montreal. So could they go after a defenseman? Could they go after a forward? They just made their selection. And with the 15th overall pick in this year's draft, the Detroit Red Wings, who just missed out on the playoffs, select with the 15th overall pick. Just give me a second here. They do take Branson-Nygaard. Okay, so not overly surprised here. Really good big body forward. A lot of people liked his size, his skating abilities. He seems like eventually could be a solid, really good middle six sort of power forward type guy. So that could be a really good pickup there for the Detroit Red Wings, taking Branson-Nygaard at 15th overall. He's a right winger. We know the Steve Yzerman likes to draft European players. He's 6'1", 198 pounds, coming off a season where he in Hockey Allsvenskan had 8 goals and 18 points in 41 games. He's going to be a fantastic pickup there for the Red Wings. Being able to join a forward group that already has guys like Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, and will eventually have guys like Casper and Danielson already in it. That's a fantastic pickup there for the Red Wings to take Branson-Nygaard at number 15. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the Red Wings. Like I said, I was expecting them to probably go up for someone, a forward most likely. I was maybe Yzerman. but they go after a guy like Branson Niagara, so that's pretty good. Yzerman's dropping a lot over the past little while. I mean, at the beginning of the season, he was predicted to be 2, and my most recent mock draft, I have him dropping to 10, and he's now going to drop to, at the very least, 16th. So it'll be interesting to see. Teams who could use a guy like Yzerman, who could use another forward, I could see maybe the Blues, because they could use maybe another top 6 winger in their prospect system. I think the Washington Capitals will probably go for a defenseman. The Blackhawks, if they were able to get their hands on Yzerman and Levshinov, a year after where they got Bedard and Moore was supposed to go in the top 10, top 15, that could be a really good pickup there for the Blackhawks. So interesting stuff there, but definitely some interesting updates for the Blackhawks, and interesting to see what direction they're going to go over the next little while. So interesting stuff there. We do have a couple more picks to come over the next while. The next one's going to be the halfway mark, so the Blues will be the halfway mark. It's going to be interesting to see what the Blues do over the next couple of days. I could see them definitely move on from a couple of defensemen, Parayko, Krug, Galletti. Wouldn't be always surprised if one of those guys get moved.